Good evening, Valerie Ling here. Hi, how you going? From where I'm sitting, it's a pretty rainy, bleak, grey day today over here in Sydney. I'd love to know what it's looking like for you out there. Greetings, everybody. In Australia, tomorrow is Father's Day. And in our household, there is a double celebration. 18 years ago, tomorrow, the same thing happened. My oldest son was born on Father's Day. And back then we were students and postgraduate students. Just putting it out there, postgraduate students. And we didn't have a car. So for Father's Day, my husband, I think he just felt the privilege of being a dad, and he got all dressed up. He actually came in a blazer and a tie and took the bus to come and meet his son. So tomorrow we have a double celebration. My son turns 18 as well as it's Father's Day. And part of the process of having an 18-year-old in your home during COVID and lockdown is a lot of milestones have actually not been able to be met or celebrated. It's been really difficult to get, for example, the driving to get his license going. There were no graduations. There's no party even. When we asked him about a month or so ago, hey, what would you like to do for your 18th? He just said, could we just put all of that on pause? It's like the whole year has been on pause. And what I've also realized is when I've been chatting with him in Australia, in New South Wales, we have a set of exams called the Higher School Certificate where they take their final exams. And talking to him, I realized how much of what meaning he has attached to this has been done in a vacuum. He's not with his peers, he's not with his teachers, and all of the usual typical structures around you that give you a sense of encouragement and pacing. You're not alone. Hey, don't worry about it. There are other things that you can be looking at while you're at school and you go home. That's all disappeared. And all he's got in front of him is this belief structure or meaning that he has placed while he's sitting in his room by himself doing school as to what his future looks like. And one of the conversations we had a couple of weeks ago really struck me as being, I didn't know that this was such an important conversation to have with him. And that is about urban legends and myths about what success looks like. One of the things we often talk about is how life has got pathways and options and choices, and we don't have to get fixed into a mindset that says all or nothing. I have to hit this target. If I don't hit this target, my entire life is, blown apart. It's the sort of thinking I find a lot in anxious, perfectionistic mindsets where what I call this linear thinking, you've got to get the right subjects and then the right grades and then get into the right tertiary education pathway, into the right career, into the right suburb, etc., etc., etc. Instead, we try to encourage a grit and growth mindset, which says that, your final destination is always being worked out. You never really know where you're going to land up. And the pathways that you take can be varied and full of setbacks. And as we were talking, I realized that can happen to us even now as adults when we're thinking about milestones, whether you're 21 or, saying hello to 30s, hello to 40s, hello to 50s, and we can get trapped into this thinking that by this age or by this stage, I should have achieved this much, or look at everybody else who's achieving all of these things, and why aren't I there? My recent topic of interest has been in the leadership space. And it's really bringing together the thoughts of this sorts of mindsets, the perfectionistic, urban legend, urban myth, drive to success mindsets that exist also in the leadership space that lead to burnout and also just lead to, frankly, just unrealistic standards and discouragement for people in leadership. And the reason why the current interest for me in leadership is there is because leaders are so much a part of all of our lives. You can be a team leader, a sport leader, you can be a leader at home, you're an informal leader at your workplace or a formal leader. What we stand for, the tone that we set, the direction that we set, the waves of inspiration, and the standards of expectations that we bring really just churn these sorts of myths and urban legends of what success looks like. And, if we're not careful, people start to look upon that as being the standard or the thing that they need to emulate. And so for me, looking at leadership is really important to just dismantle some of those myths. What I am about to be looking at as I prepare for a couple of conferences coming up is stories that we don't hear. We don't realize that things that get published often have to be polished. And the great thinkers or leaders that we think are out there in the public space, dead or alive, we don't get to hear just their everyday human struggles, their everyday thoughts and decisions, failures and mistakes that led to them being, sort of having more clarity. And so I struggle when people ask me, who do I look up to, or where do I get my inspiration from, or who do I emulate, who do I want to be? Because the more I've read and leaned into the space of leaders, whether they're world leaders, business leaders, any leaders, they all have their failings, and they're different for me. I don't know how I would emulate Michelle Obama. I'm not quite sure how I would be like Brené Brown. Frankly, I'm also just not that touchy-feely. I'm not as touchy-feely as Brené Brown. I don't know how I would do that. The best that I can say, and the best that I have offered my 18-year-old son, well, he's 18 years tomorrow, is to really to come back to his principles. In our family, there are faith principles that guide us. What do we fundamentally believe in as human beings in terms of our faith principles? What are the values that guide us? What's really important to us? How do we want to contribute back to people? How do we want to give of our strengths and our abilities and our skills and our talents? And how brave do we want to be and convicted do we want to be? The part of giving to others from the bedrock of our values and our principles means that we've got to make mistakes. We've actually got to try it out and take windy pathways along the way to collect wisdom and experiences and setbacks and adversity so that we grow. Because if that is what our conviction is, then, or where our convictions lie, then we can celebrate the setbacks as well as the successes, and whatever the success means, because we are growing, and we're growing for a purpose, not just to feel a sense of pride and achievement for ourselves, but also to feel a sense of pride and achievement for what we can contribute and we can give back. And that mindset takes risks. It takes the belief structure that we've got to put ourselves out there, give it a go, give it a try, make mistakes, rewind, fast forward. Well, you can't really fast forward. Rewind, readjust, adjust, regroup, and keep going. So I leave you with those thoughts, and to start to say that I am not yet ready to come back into clinical work just yet. So for some of you, you have noticed that I have been giving more talks and taking bookings at the moment. Part of that is because my role at the Center for Effective Living as the principal clinical psychologist also just means that I need to still contribute to my team at the practice and do my part. I didn't take a holiday or leave. I haven't yet opened up my clinical diary. That is starting to take shape as to what I will do from February onwards. But from September onwards, I'm starting to get back into some of the speaking and engagement and conferences that were already lined up for me last year. And in particular, as the team at Center for Effective Living needs me to do my part and in being part of the team. So thank you for listening. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday and into Sunday. Take care.